Good morning. It's April 11th, 2024, 9 o'clock a.m., and this is the Budget, Capital, and Personnel Committee, not the Budget, Personnel, and Capital Committee. We're joined in chambers today by members Shona Black, Deborah Dawson, and Lee Shurtleff. We're anticipating Rich John. Can we take the minutes? March 14th. Deborah moves them. Shona seconds.
Oh, this is going to Geo. Okay.
Discussion, changes, corrections. Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. I don't see anybody here in chambers. Is there anybody online for comments from the public? Well, let's go to committee chair report. Don't see Veronica here for the.
She's on the.
There she is. She's online.
Hello.
Veronica Pillar is here to talk to us about Workforce Diversity and Inclusion Committee.
Yes, hi.
Good morning.
Veronica Pillar, they, them pronouns, WDIC chair. I don't have any additional report to what I reported at the last full legislature meeting. Our committee last met a few weeks ago, I don't remember, talked about how we could plug into ongoing website, website revamping work, and heard a report from our Chief Equity and Diversity Officer and her interns on looking at demographic methods with through an equity lens demographic data. And we had a good discussion about what should or could come next about that. That's all I got.
Questions, comments? Veronica, we appreciate your reports from that committee. We appreciate the work that the committee does for us and advising us on these issues, which are always in the forefront of what things we're thinking about.
Thank you. I do have one more thing. It's not really from the committee, but today's Thursday, 2 days ago, was the DEI Leadership Summit at Ithaca College, put on by both the county and Ithaca College. A lot of county folks were there. It was very, very good, with a couple of powerful keynotes and a few very good workshops, including one put on by our own Charlene Holmes, which was unfortunately the one I missed. So I think I can't see everyone in chambers now, but some people there were there. And for those who weren't, I'm hoping we'll have, some time to discuss and report back, informally or otherwise. That's all.
Thank you for that. I find it so interesting that we here, and I think throughout New York State, people are interested in DEI issues. And we hear around the country where discussion about them in schools is being banned. What a dichotomy we have. Anything else for Veronica? Thanks again, Veronica. Wanted to talk a little bit about the expanded budget committee process this year. We know we've got the budget retreat coming up at the end of April. I think we put a reminder in there for you. That's going to be up at the Rice Conference Room. I called it the conference center last meeting. I got called out for that, so it's the conference room at the Rice Center at the Health Department. Maybe turn to Lisa. Is there any preliminary things you want us to be thinking about? Because I'd like to talk a little bit about how we're going to handle the expanded budget committee process.
The only preliminary thing that I'm thinking about is the state budget, and when it's going to be passed. Last year, it was not passed by the time we did the budget retreat, and we ended up having to do a second one. And there were some major swings that occurred as a result. I don't anticipate that the state budget will take as long this year, and I'm hoping that it will be passed in the next week or so. So I think we'll be okay, and I don't anticipate as many swings. So, but I guess what I would say is, in hindsight, I wish we had postponed the budget retreat and just did it once, because it was a lot of work to prepare for two. I hope that's not the case this year. So that's all. That's the only thing I can that comes to mind right now.
Deborah?
Well, would it be possible, if the state budget doesn't come out in a timely fashion, to just postpone rather than go through having two of them? I don't think anybody's really up for two. Be great with us.
I have no problem with that. Lee, what do you think? Shauna?
Sounds good to me.
All right, so if you need to postpone, why don't you let us know, and the hardest thing is finding a date.
Yes.
To come back together, and that's always difficult. Last year, because the whole process was pushed out into September, much longer than it was normally, we abbreviated the presentations that were made by our departments to the expanded budget committee. I personally would like to see us get back to what we were doing before and give each department a chance to have some face time with the legislature. I don't think we need to have extensive reports, and we didn't have extensive reports in the previous couple of years or more before that. But I do think that I, for one, really missed not seeing all the departments during the process. I understand why we didn't, but I do think we missed something. That was my opinion.
What do you think will be the highlights in the budget this year? Is this one where there'll be extensive capital discussions, review of that?
I think capital will be a major component. Again, not anticipating any big swings or surprises from the state level. But then also, there are a number of new initiatives from the county that we've undertaken, rapid medical response, a lot of decision-making around reimagining public safety projects moving forward, and some other areas. We know certain departments have expressed being understaffed. So I think it's going to be a lot of local prioritization, and as you mentioned, with the capital program as well.
I do think there are some risks here in the state budget that they're negotiating, 3 people in a room. The one I've been hearing lately about is the possibility of changing or improving benefits for Tier 5 and 6 in the pension system. If that happens, that could be a big hit on localities, including Tompkins County. And I guess we don't know what it would be. I mean, there's a lot of different bills out there about it. State unions, of course, are in favor of it. It was the tiers were set up because of the extreme costs of 1, 2, 3, and 4. So that's one we got to keep our eye on, along with health insurance, certainly, and the gorilla of Medicaid always.
And to that point, Mike, unfortunately, we don't get the final estimates on pensions until very late in the game, usually beginning of September. So we probably will want to take a conservative approach early in the year, expecting that could come back to bite us.
Well, we should hear whether there's anything in the pension fairly soon. Shauna?
Yeah, I definitely hear what you're saying, Mike, in regards to the pension. As someone who has only been here for, 6, 7 years, I'm a tier 6, and I can say I would have a better pension if I worked at Walmart. It's not a great benefit, and unfortunately, it's really not competitive. And so I'm sure that Larry and Ruby, whenever you're interviewing people, if they have the choice of Cornell or working for county government, I know we can't always match what the compensation aspect, but historically, people have gone to government because you have great benefits, and that unfortunately is not the case anymore. So I hope at some point we can be competitive, even though I realize it's going to cost the county money.
Good point. I would say that I would think that the statutory colleges at Cornell, the employment there would be under the same pension system, but maybe not the endowed colleges. Anything else on this issue? At the last legislature meeting, I asked legislators to let either Ruby or me or both of us know about which team they wanted to be on with respect to the direct reports. I've heard from 4. I don't know if you didn't hear from any more. I heard from Randy, who said put him anywhere. He was kind of interested in being on the clerk team. Shauna had no preference. She said, Amanda, no preference, but thought the chair should just decide who, I think she meant the chair of the legislature, just decide who's going to be on which team. And Greg said that he could be put anywhere, although he had some interest in the administrator and clerk teams. Deborah.
Yeah, I had mentioned, I think, at the meeting and to Ruby that I would like to be on Lori's team.
I think you did, come to think about it.
I would serve wherever, Mike.
Thank you.
Same here, Mike.
I'm just writing down these notes. Ruby, I wanted to ask you, and we haven't actually had the announcement from, well, maybe we ought to, before I ask that question, why don't I turn back to Lisa? Lisa, I heard on the news this afternoon, or this morning, about your press release. Do you want to speak about that?
Sure. So I have made the bittersweet decision to retire at the end of 2024. And I've really enjoyed and appreciated my long career with the county, and I'm looking forward to hoping that this provides a long glide path for the legislature to be able to search and find a replacement. And in an ideal world, I'd have the time to work with that person to orient them to the position. So, but I've got 9 months to go, so I don't want to wax too poetic, but I've really, it's been a privilege to serve the county.
Well, you, of course, advised the legislature in advance, and we thank you for that. We don't thank you for retiring. We thought when you were appointed that it was a lifetime appointment, much like Supreme Court judge or the Pope, and so now we're doubly surprised.
Are we going to be issuing smoke when we find a replacement?
That's a good thought.
Ceremonial.
You've done a wonderful job for us, and I know you'll continue to do that, but thank you for letting us know well in advance.
you.
That didn't happen with the last administrator. We had a very short time. Now I'll turn to Ruby, because this is my question. Just hired a new county attorney, and I think we'll probably have a report on that. Are we going to have any kind of report?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. Well, we're close to hiring then. I know we've made an offer, let's put it that way.
Yes.
So there's a vacancy there, which we hope to be filling. And we're going to be having a new county administrator, obviously, because of Lisa's retirement. How does that affect what we're planning to do with the direct report?
Perfect timing. Because as a part of the performance evaluation program, there's an initial discussion about the expectations and job performance and job responsibilities. So it's the perfect timing to start that initial discussion, talk about what you expect of the position, and identify some goals, some measurable goals. And so as much as I don't even know what word to say with Lisa leaving me, but okay, I'll deal with it. But as much as I don't want to deal with it, this is a perfect timing for new. We'll start the program and be able to see it through.
But as opposed to the other direct reports where there will also be an issue of past performance.
Right.
This will only be a forward-looking goals kind of thing.
All of them should be forward-looking. We do know we have a director of finance who's been here for a little while, but we've never had those initial discussions where you've identified specific goals. The performance evaluation program is different than simply a year-end performance review. We are initiating a program rather than a simple review. The past performance will show us, okay, what type of goals should we identify? But it won't be a look backward. It's always a look forward.
Okay.
So when we start the performance evaluation program this year for those incumbents who are already here, you won't actually do the year-end evaluation until a year afterwards. So it's an annual performance evaluation program.
Okay.
We'll get there.
We're going to give it a try.
It's a different look, but remember in this process, it's not only identifying specific goals, there's also a check-in point where you're checked to see how things are going, whether additional resources are needed or identify any concerns. Then there's a 360 evaluation with the survey, and the legislators have their own survey that they'll be answering. So there's a lot built into a program that's not necessarily a one-time event where you do the year-end review.
Deborah.
I take Ruby's meaning about the timing of all this being perfect, or as perfect as it can be in government. We've been going through a real transition period now for a couple of years in these key direct report positions. And fortunately, now we're at a place where we have good people in every position, and that gives us breathing space to transition into this forward-looking program that Ruby has proposed. So, thank you, Lisa. Thank you, Lori. Thank you, Katrina. And thank you, Holly, for standing in.
Yeah, Katrina and Lori are going to be the
old ladies.
The senior people here, right? Anything else on this? So I think what I'll do is get together with Dan and make a proposed group here and see if he wants to go with that. Is that all right? Let's go back to Lisa for her report.
Thank you. Can I bring up my, okay. I don't have too much further to report on. State budget, we're in the process with staff. Norma and Samantha are doing a lot of number crunching in preparation for our retreat, collecting anticipated mandate costs from departments and salary increases and all of the components that make up our initial projections. And as I'd mentioned at the full legislature meeting, our new budget director, Corey Post, will be joining us on April 29th, so that's great timing there. And Norma, you had one other item you wanted to mention.
Oh, yeah, I just wanted to bring to the committee's attention that we are looking into software that will allow the county to track their contracts and procurement better. That those software applications don't come for free, so I will come back. We'll be coming back next meeting and requesting and presenting those options to you. The positive note on that is if we do, for what we would spend to purchase the software, we would also see savings, so we'd be able to show you both.
Norma, are you coordinating that with the county attorney's office and the director of finance?
Yes, yeah, we're a team on everything, aren't we, Lori? Yeah.
That's good.
Well, you don't care about this part. Yes, you are a team, though. We are a team. Yes,
That's
absolutely.
We're glad to have
Central
you
administration is a team. We meet regularly. How's that?
That's great.
Okay.
And I hope IT's involved. Anything else, Lisa, before we get to the resolutions?
No, number of resolutions for you today.
I wanted to ask, is there any update? You gave the Downtown Facilities Committee an update on the Sears Street properties. I wondered, is there any update on the Red House sale?
Excuse me. Yes, I think we're ever so close to finalizing. The buyer's attorney has been very meticulous in going through, and I think we're at the end of that review and very close. I don't see any issues.
Good.
This is like going on a long car trip with your parents as a child. Are we there yet? Almost.
For those,
I was just trying to think of a comeback I couldn't think of.
yeah, this is something where real estate transactions in New York State are just way more complex than they need to be, and they absolutely take way too long. And I was doing real estate closings early in my career and for a long time, and they haven't gotten easier. They've actually gotten more bureaucratic and difficult.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you and I had a conversation about when the closing was going to be, and you were quite optimistic.
Of mid-February. Yeah.
Yeah, this is how long it takes. Yeah. Shouldn't, but yeah.
Thanks, Dad.
And be quiet in the back seat. Yeah.
Sit down and shut up.
Yeah, don't make me stop this car. Yeah, all right.
Okay. Let's start Resolution A, appropriation from contingent fund budget adjustment, county administration, hiring a consultant for reimagining public safety. That's 12306. Deborah's moved it, Sean has seconded it. Discussion about that. Lee.
What are they going to do?
I think this is been identified as something, a consultant to work with all parties involved to help finish the remaining outstanding projects strong in 2024 and to help with engagement among all of the parties and engagement with the community.
So it wasn't anticipated initially, money's coming from contingency to facilitate the process.
Yeah, funding wasn't laid out for this purpose in any of the reimagining plans.
Rich?
Should this resolution go to public safety as well? Because it seems like this is a specific goal of public safety for this year,
Yes.
but it's not shown here. Maybe we should.
Yeah, we discussed that internally. It was rooted to these committees.
it's going there too?
I think it should have gone. I think it should go to public safety as well.
Then the language in the resolve will need to add that committee. Are we ready to vote? Ready to vote, Lee?
As long as it's going to public safety for further discussion, I'll vote. Yeah.
All those in favor? Any opposed? That's
Just to
unanimous.
clarify, it is scheduled to go to, excuse me, to clarify, it is scheduled to go to public safety on 4/23,
Okay,
and it'll hit the legislature on 4/7. 5/7, excuse me.
thank you.
On when? When to the legislature?
5/7.
Oh, May. Okay. All right, let's go to B, budget adjustment, county administration, soil and water conservation district, that's 12320. Someone want to move that one? Lee? Who's going to second it? Rich? Discussion on this one? This is the one we pulled before, right? What's happened since then?
So this budget adjustment is a different way of handling a longstanding agreement that we have with Soil and Water for the $200,000, and I believe there's a resolution later in the packet referring to that. What this budget adjustment does is there currently is a budget code in the budget 8730 for Soil and Water, and currently the only item that is in that code is the annual contribution to Soil and Water. So I would like to have everything that pertains to Soil and Water in that code so that it's very transparent to everyone, you all, the public, and me, and our staff, what is going there. So what this shows is the expense of the $200,000, and at the bottom you can see the revenue that they pay us back. It also shows historically the county has paid for the audit of the Soil and Water, and that was at a cost last year of $8,000. So that's just moving it from, it was currently in the finance's budget, so you can see it coming out of finance professional services and going into Soil and Water code, as well as the county has historically paid for the Soil and Water share of the Workers' Compensation Unified Employer Assessment Fee, and that was $650 last year. So again, moving that from where it was, well, that's spread out among all of the workers' comp costs in the county. So we're proposing to take it from contingency to cover it. It'll wash out in the end and go back to fund balance, but without multiplying a tiny percentage among every single department to move it, we just took it out of contingency, the $650. So it's basically, in essence, putting everything in one pot so that you can see what is going on with Soil and Water.
Can I just add to that, Mike? If you don't.
Go ahead.
And so when Lori and I talked about this, the other part of, when folks change from position to position, these kinds of agreements and adjustments get lost in the shuffle, and then folks forget how it happened. And so this, there was a couple ways we could have handled it. We could have just created or just provided them the funding to keep in their own coffers, but down the road, do we remember that we've done that, and so on. So this just really kind of keeps it all nice and clean from year to year through succession. Folks will just see how this has these adjustments have been made. So we just really wanted to make it real clear and transparent and easy to follow year after year, rather than having to worry, having to count on somebody to remember why we did what we did, because we did a lot of research to figure out how we even manage this, and I wouldn't want to put somebody else through that work.
Rich?
This all seems fine. It just seems, it seems redundant to the resolution on packet page 56, that you're, on page 14, you're moving the money within the budget and you're authorizing the administrator to enter into the contract. And then 56, it seems like they're authorizing the administrator to enter into a contract. But is 56 actually paying the money? Why aren't we doing one resolution? Why two?
Is this the original
I think this is the original resolution and probably should have been pulled. I think that's an additional resolution that doesn't need to be.
So you're
The one on page 56, we don't need.
I think that's true. I think that just didn't get pulled.
Ah,
I think that's the one from last meeting.
could it be done early?
Yeah.
There.
No, we're not. I have a question.
So that's under 9B, we're withdrawing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. And this resolution that's on the table also hits the contingent fund for the 650, so there won't be a separate resolution authorizing that expenditure from contingency. Is that right?
Correct.
Deborah?
Yeah, I'm not sure that I understand why we're going to go through this exercise of making a contribution every year and then making a contribution back. I mean, to me, it still kind of looks loanish. And I don't understand why, if we're aiming for transparency, there must be some way to set up an accounting entry that shows that we've given Soil and Water $200,000 to meet their cash flow needs in perpetuity without going through this exercise of giving them the money and having them give it back. I mean, do we have to do a resolution every year to do this?
No, it'll be in their budget moving forward.
Just automatically?
Yep, this will just be done in their budget. I've had a conversation with John as well, and so he knows kind of how this process would work, so.
But we still expect to be reimbursed from the grant fundings that come in, right?
So money's just going to keep moving back and forth? And this is so nobody forgets why they need the $200,000? I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult. It just,
No, I
it just
understand.
seems like a ridiculously convoluted process to avoid calling something that we're doing what it actually is. And if we're not supposed to do it that way, then we should just put the money in an account, and when they get it audited every year, they have to show that it's there and it's accounted for. I don't understand this process, but.
So my recommendation would be to consider that the 200,000 be a contribution in addition to the 300 and some that we do one time, and then they have that money and they can manage that money without expecting them to pay it back in that ever, really. Just make a contribution and now we're done forever. They manage their money, they're going forward. But I don't believe that was the agreement that we had with them, so I don't know if that involves other things. I'm not sure how that.
I mean, it just seems like agreements can be changed.
I don't think John cares. So if that's the way, it did take quite a bit of research to chase this down and figure out what was going on with it. So as long as somebody is able to track this after we're gone, and that we've given that money, and then that's fine. I mean, it isn't, once it's done, now it's on the Soil and Water Conservation District to just make sure that they know, again, those folks change too, that everybody understands what that bucket of money was intended to do. And that was the only reason we did it the way we're doing it. It was just to kind of keep that a good understanding of where the funds are coming from, what they're being used for. But if they're sitting in a savings account or reserve account, however they're doing that on their side.
I like the way we're doing it,
But
frankly.
however Lori wants, I mean, it's
I
fine.
like, can I just say this and I'll get to you? I like the fact that it's shown, we were doing it as a loan, which we don't really want to do at this point, I understand that. But what it did, if any of you recall, Soil and Water was in serious financial issues, and it had to do with spending grant money for things that the grants were not coming in yet to pay for. And with this, doing it this way, they know that when that grant money comes in, it's got to go back to this account. And I'm just worried that, I think it's run very well right now from everything that our liaisons are telling us and what we're hearing, but it would be possible if you have a personnel change or something like that, that there will be issues in the future. I think the transparency of this as a loan is a good thing for the county. That's my opinion.
But it's not supposed to be a loan. We're not
No.
supposed to be making loans, and I don't care what you call this, but it looks a lot like a loan.
Go ahead, Lori.
I just want to also let you know that it historically lags by year. So I can't remember off the top of my head what year it started, but we contributed to them $200,000. They paid us back the following year. And that same year, we contributed another 200. So it's this constant, we're advancing that money every year, but they're paying it back. So if they had the money, if they didn't have to pay back their receivable from last year, they'd have the money, and we wouldn't have to go through this gyration every year of in and out, in and out, in and out. So that's my recommendation.
Rich?
My recollection is we've done something similar with TC3, where they were in a situation
Yes.
where we advanced. Okay. I'm okay with the resolution.
Advance the quarter payments. Yeah.
But that's not something they have to pay back. That's just timing of money that we've already determined we're going to give them.
Yeah.
What's the source of the $200,000 that's coming back? Are they receiving it from
Grants.
grants? So it's not unlike some of the annual grants that we've got where we have to front money, Homeland Security, for instance. You know that you're going to have a continuing, well, you're expecting it if budgets get renewed. Is that a similar handling?
Seems that way. I don't know.
I mean, my written comment here is confidence on reimbursement. I assume we've always been paid back this money. Yes?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I don't know, I just don't love this.
So this Soil and Water, it is a separate program, 8730 in the budget.
Mm-hmm.
And do we get the annual presentations? We will this year.
Yeah, he
From
presents.
the department, so they're going to have to come forward and talk about this on a continuing basis, I would assume.
And he's acknowledged that he has to submit those funds annually in the timeline that Lori's. It hasn't been required in the past. I'm sorry, I spoke out. I didn't raise my hand, but that's, yeah.
May I suggest that we go ahead with this and that when it comes back budget time, we bring it up again? Does that make any sense?
I guess.
I'd like to get through this. All right, then. Are ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? One opposed. All right, where are we? Resolution C to update the administrative policy manual on travel and training expense reimbursement, 12329. Someone want to move that one? Shauna? Rich? Who wants to talk about that one?
I can kick us off. I think that these, the major update here involves travel expenses for legislators, transportation between home and assigned and regularly assigned workplace on packet page 20. And then the other updates are more or less incidental.
Questions? Shauna, then Deborah.
Yeah, I was confused in the wording of this. On packet page 20, number 9, transportation between an employee's excluding legislator's home and regularly assigned workplace, or transportation to places of entertainment or similar personal activities. Like, what does that mean?
They're non-reimbursable. Any of those types of expenses are non-reimbursable. So, transportation to a place of entertainment, transportation to personal activities, or transportation for any county employee traveling from home to work. So all of those are not reimbursable, except for when it comes to legislators' travel from home to.
Any of those activities?
And regularly assigned workplace.
Basically, that's the tax, the IRS.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
We're just bringing ourselves in line with federal law.
Okay. I mean, it's, okay.
Go ahead, Deborah.
So I have a question. It says any reimbursement of mileage incurred by legislators travel between home and regular assigned workplace is taxable income. What kind of additional accounting work is this going to impose on county staff?
So I believe Amanda's planning to bring this forth at GO in June to discuss it more in depth. But currently, right now, we are flagging those reimbursements and we'll be putting them in our payroll system as taxable. What I'd like to propose at the GO is that we change the process and have it go straight through payroll and not do an AP check. But we haven't started that process yet because we were waiting for the GO discussion.
Okay. Because in the past, I know that legislators have been reimbursed and there have been no tax accounting procedures, and I just want to be sure. Okay. So it's going to be extra work either way, but I don't understand why we treat legislators differently, but okay.
I'll get you just a second, Rich. I just want to say that, ever since this first came up at discussion several years ago, and when I submit my mileage, I always put where I start, whether at my office or whether it's from my home, so that can be ferreted out if we came to this, which we're coming to. So the form that we use may need some looking at. If we have a discussion in GO about that, so that folks at the payroll department can understand it more easily. The truth is, there are a lot of events and things that legislators do as a part of their job because they're elected officials. Mm-hmm. Same with the sheriff, same with the county clerk. But that doesn't mean they should be excluded from the right to be reimbursed. So I think that's why it's different here. Rich?
Yeah, beyond expressing my long-held position that legislators should walk to chambers, I'm wondering, the language of this note, the note is referring to 9, is that correct? there's no footnote connection. I assume it's next to it because of that. Why isn't it just in 9? Not a big question, but
It could be.
yeah, it might be clearer if it was just there. And then on page 19, there was the change regarding lunch, but you know what, I'm not even going to ask.
Wasn't the lunch something that was negotiated in one of our
Yes, it was
union contracts?
to be consistent with our
Thanks.
unit contract.
Other comments?
So I just want to confirm. So essentially, this is keeping it the same way that it is. A legislator can use their home office as an office, and then if and when they come into the chambers, they could be reimbursed. However, it is going to be considered taxable income. Is that correct? Okay, thank you.
That's the way I understand it.
Okay,
And I think that's fair.
yeah, I do too.
Go ahead, Rich.
Just in terms of scope, how much are we spending, do we know, on legislator travel?
Travel or mileage? Or both?
Well, the mileage reimbursement.
Which budget line is this commuting mileage
I'm just trying to get a sense of
actually showing
scale.
up
How much does this matter?
You'd have to ask Katrina that.
It varies, actually, every year. I think last year it was about $1,500 from
Okay.
legislator travel and training, but that's just off the top of my head. COVID, I mean, there was a huge drop in mileage.
This is mileage for legislators to drive from home to here on a regular
Pretty much.
basis.
Or to attend various
Yeah.
activities, yeah.
You're saying $1,500?
I believe that's what it was last year.
Are you talking per
I,
total or total?
Mike, I would have to look into it further, and I can get you the exact numbers for the last few years.
But this $1,500 is total for,
Yeah, there was only a few
because
legislators.
Rich doesn't get money at all, because he walks everywhere.
We should buy him shoes.
New bike.
We need shoe policy.
So I just have one additional question about this. Does that mileage, I know that we've got this system where each legislator has an assigned amount that they can use for training. This doesn't count towards
That's
that.
different then.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. All right, that was fun. We want to go to E, resolution to update Administrative Policy Manual 05-12, grant applications, acceptance and award management.
Wait, are we doing that or petty cash?
1, 2, 3, 3, 1.
Skipped.
Did I skip one?
Page 27.
Petty cash.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'll go back to resolution to update Administrative Policy Manual 5-09, petty cash, 12330. Sorry about that. Question, you're
on the
moving
floor?
it?
Yeah.
Deborah's moving, is there a second? Seconded by Rich. Go ahead, Deb.
No, I just wanted to be sure it was moved in on the floor.
Go ahead, Rich.
I was curious, how many petty cash boxes do we have out there, and how has it worked? Have we had problems with our petty cash management? You know, it's always a sore point from a compliance standpoint. I'm curious.
Yeah, I think there's roughly 10 petty cash accounts. Don't quote me on that, but I can get you that exact number, but roughly 10 petty cash accounts. And currently we have issue with one, but everybody else seems to be reconciling and taking care of it as they should be. And we just changed this policy to reflect bring it up to date with what we're actually doing, practicing.
The changes made sense to me.
Shauna?
So if I can just say, I am relieved that we're doing this policy, because I remember actually 1 year, maybe 2 years ago, we spent about an hour discussing paper towels and toilet paper. So I'm glad that we're getting some clarity on the petty cash situation, because there was a big question about paper towels and if government could pay for paper towels, and it consumed way too much of our time. So thank you for allowing us to have toilet paper and paper towels in our facilities, and fixing policies like this.
The leaves around county buildings are now safe.
Yeah.
Let's get back to the seriousness here.
Oh, I was serious. It was serious matters a few years ago.
So was I.
It was serious.
Okay, other comments?
Remember that?
Let's vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Now we'll go to the one that I skipped to, resolution to update Administrative Policy Manual 0512, grant applications, acceptance and award management. Lee? Rich? Discussion? What are we doing here?
I can kind of provide an overview in the absence of Bridget, our policy guru. This policy was modified to meet best practices as recommended by our grants consultant in coordination with the central administrative departments that handle and process a lot of grants. The purpose is to centralize the grant application, award, and management process to position the county to become more competitive in grant applications, and to note that this is a workflow, a process. It's not a succession that is going to lead to bottlenecks or holding us up. So all grant applications and notices of other funding will be funneled through this new workflow, which will allow administration and finance to better track our grant applications across the organization and provide better support, technical support and training to our departments in the process.
Questions? Rich?
I'm very happy to see this. Obviously, we've had prior discussions about how the landscape for grants is changing, and there's way more opportunity probably within the next 5 years, and we should be riding the wave. I think this will help us do it. I did have one comment on page 39, the new added language at the top of the page in 2 regarding DEI. I'm fine with that language, but I would suggest it might help to have a separate paragraph that states that, because the original language, I think, did more work. As it's now written, the person doing the person responsible for the grant needs to do the DEI stuff, but it isn't clear that they have all the other grant administration responsibility. So I'd go to a paragraph A, B, and C, and have this be, the DEI stuff be in a paragraph B.
Okay.
Is that new language?
Is that okay with us, everybody?
I want to be sure I understand. You said page 39?
Correct.
And 2, you want A, B, and C instead of just A and B?
Yeah, so that there's a general paragraph as it was before saying you're responsible to administer the grant. You have all of the responsibilities. It isn't just the DEI stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's fine.
Is that, I'm trying to figure out the colors here, but is the DEI language new, or was that in existing policy?
It's new.
Is this attach DEI initiatives to all of the grants that are being managed? That would they be viewed through the lens?
It attaches the lens.
How does that align with compliance for the grant purposes that may be coming forward? You have routine formula and program grants that come without respect or consideration of those types of initiatives?
I think, on the one hand, it better positions us because right now we have federal grants with DEI, MWBE requirements that we have not systematically had a way of looking at or of fulfilling those requirements. And so on the one hand, this positions us to be better situated to provide that support to departments. And then on the other hand, it is looking at any grants that may not have those requirements, but looking at those opportunities to determine through an equity lens whether our practices or whether the grant itself will result in greater equity for the community, et cetera. So does
this put a layer of additional work on the department heads or the departments that are receiving grants? I mean, most of them are for very targeted purposes, and I don't know how you expand that equity in the process. And I'm thinking back on grants that I would administer for the 911 system or state homeland security program, very specific parameters. How would I take those and view them in terms of equity and apply them in a manner that does something a little bit different than what the federal and state government were directing them for?
I would think, for instance, just thinking about a communication project, if it's going to result in better communication across the county for our residents, that in and of itself is an equity issue that the grant is helping us to address, that all of our residents will be better served with communication. So I think that it's really just keeping this at the forefront of how our community is going to be better served. I don't think that it results in an additional layer of work, and I think that it helps us to address some areas where compliance has been, it's been a requirement to comply with some of these areas, and we have not been able to, I mean, we've complied, but we've not been able to offer great support to our departments in those areas.
Deborah.
Yeah, I kind of want to reassure you, based on experience when I was with the RTC and the FDIC in the early 90s, and this really started, the whole DEI forerunners hit mainstream. And when RTC and FDIC had to contract out, which we had to do a lot of, they imposed this requirement that we consider what they call MWABs when we did all of our contracting. And initially people thought, oh my God, this is just going to be an additional mess that we have to deal with. And it actually transitioned pretty smoothly. There were at the time, and there are now, I think, lists and organizations where you can find contractors that meet the MWAB definition, and you just make sure that your RFP or whatever goes out to those people as generally. If you can't find a contractor that fits within the definition that meets the RFP and your needs as someone who's looking for a contractor, then I think you've satisfied your DEI requirements if you've made the effort. Is that how this works? I mean, it's not that hard, I don't think.
Yeah, that's my understanding. You just have to document your due diligence in those areas.
I guess I'm just trying to be assured here that we're not imposing requirements on ourselves, that we're looking to comply with outside direction or desires.
Well, we are kind of, I mean, it's not that we're imposing a requirement, but we're integrating a commitment we've made to DEI into our contracting processes. And that actually helps us document the fact that we're complying with whatever DEI requirements are attached to the state and federal grants.
It's kind of two different things there, what you've just described. To me, I mean, part of it is, yes, it's furthering our goals as a county organization, but it appears that we're also trying to comply with those expectations that are coming as a contingency on the grants. But there are a lot of grants out there where this is probably not even a consideration. And I'm just trying to think through. I'm going back into department head mode. How many layers are we going to self-impose upon ourselves in order to get outside revenue here?
In some fashion, I think those layers already exist. So for instance, when a department receives a grant and we go through a procurement process, there are standards built in the procurement process to ensure that there is, there are equitable practices. So it's kind of in every layer that is already existing. I don't think this adds a new layer to it. It just
Formalizes it.
Yes, it formalizes it.
Rich?
Yeah, no, Lee, I take your point that you could have grants where you'd be really stretching to say there is a DEI element to it. And maybe we could address it if we're doing a paragraph B to say to the extent applicable or, as required, some sort of explanatory language saying we want to do it, where it makes sense. But if it's a grant that has no ability to use the DEI lens, you're not asking a department head to do that. I think Norma has.
I think too that we need to, this is really designed to help us continually think about the framework of DEI, right? So this isn't necessarily the grant itself. It's thinking about how it affects our community and to make sure that this is all about creating a thought process for the folks who are doing or administering these grants and not losing that focus and that framework. So it's not necessarily going to be the technical aspects of the grant administration, but it's going to be more about the thought around making sure that we're constantly keeping that in our focus while we're making decisions all throughout the county. This is going to be added into policies. We're just trying to make sure that we keep that focus. I don't think it's really intended to be restrictive on the grant administrators. It's really meant to keep us mindful, because if it's not written down, sometimes we lose that.
Shauna?
I think also this realizes that this is like after the fact, after we've awarded the grant. And so even the first sentence is once the grant funding has been awarded. Mm-hmm. And so essentially what Norma's saying is that once we know the provider that we're working with, we're going to use that lens moving forward.
Right.
Are we okay, Lee?
I'm not sure if I'm okay, but I appreciate the explanations here. I like Rich's suggestion, something to the extent practicable or extent possible. And this is under the management section. It doesn't really relate back to the applying or receiving of a grant. It's really in how you're managing something that's been awarded, if I'm reading this correctly. That kind of echoes what Norma just said with keeping it mindful as you're applying the grant. Does that make it any clearer? It does to me, but I'm a little skeptical on the whole topic, frankly.
Go ahead, Shona.
I think also just to confirm, whenever we're talking about DEI, like this should not be political. You know, this should be the basis and the foundation of which we're looking at candidates, at prospective vendors, and the way that we should do business. And so I just want to make sure that we're not talking partisan. We're talking about the fairness and the lens that we should be looking at as a county.
I'm not talking political, Shawna.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm that,
I'm talking from a management standpoint and being practical in how we move forward with grants that are semi-routine or have very clear focus or intentions when you apply them. And you're moving them toward an agenda that I don't know that they were intended toward, potentially.
I'd like to move to a vote if we could. Lee, if you can't support it, that we understand. Rich?
Just to be clear what we're voting on, how would we amend the language?
I think they've agreed to make that change, so I guess that we're voting on it with that change that you've suggested.
The A, B, and the C. 3 different.
But then some prefatory language. Does that address what you were asking about, Lee?
Right.
I think it would.
Well, we should define what that prefatory language is, shouldn't we?
I think we should, probably.
Yeah, okay, so let's do that.
I think the phrase that came out of my mouth was to the extent applicable.
Is that all right? Got that, Taylor? Okay. All right, let's vote. All those in favor? Any opposed? One opposed. Let's go to Resolution F. Updated.
I may come back and support it at the legislative level when I read
We're bringing you along.
language. Yep.
Okay.
Not entirely opposed to this.
Yeah.
Resolution to update the administrative policy manual, that's 0513, allowable and unallowable food expense, 12333. Deborah's moved it, and I think Rich has seconded. Discussion about this one.
I noticed the omission of candy at expanded budget committee meetings. How are we going to function?
Sugar rush.
You can visit HR before you come to it. True.
I just want to say, I think one of my first memories of my first days in county administration was sitting at a meeting where the food policy was discussed with the finance department. And so 6 years later, I'm so glad to see this cross the finish line. This is a very difficult policy to actually put in words and wrap everybody's head around. And we've had a number of discussions with department heads over the years on this particular policy. So thank you, Lori and Bridget and everyone who had a hand in putting pen to paper with this. And again, this is really just to bring the county into compliance with what the IRS allows and New York State Comptroller.
Rich.
I'll just put it out there that I wrote a note on this one, that I wager this policy will grow, that you've got a brand new policy here. I think this is going to be tested in all sorts of different directions.
It depends on the number of toppings on the pizza.
Yeah.
Like flags.
Yeah, when are we getting back to flags?
I bought a promotional item once for the 911 system that was wrapped candy with advertising, and I caught holy hell over that years ago. So I'm glad there's some clarifying language here.
Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? Donna, you're in favor? Okay, that's unanimous.
Oh,
Mike?
I did have a question, actually. Shoot. Too late?
Go ahead.
On page 45, B2, that seemed pretty broad. Other recognition, including performance or professional recognition. unallowable.
Yeah, so what we were trying to get at there was, we can't have parties and big meals every time somebody hits a milestone in a department. There's very specific ones that are recognized per the union contracts, and that's the 25-year club and the employee picnic. So we were trying to get away from paying for internal departmental parties, I guess.
And I'm trying to remember at the picnic in the 25-year club, is there beer and wine? There's none. Okay.
Cash bar.
There's a cash bar at the 25-year club.
Okay, okay.
Which you scheduled while I'm on vacation, so I'm very upset.
Ready? So we already voted, okay.
Mike? Mike?
Katrina?
I did look back for local mileage for legislators. In 2022, there was $3,100 spent, and in 2023, it was $3,500.
So that gives you an idea of what we're talking about.
Thank you, Katrina.
Thanks for looking that up. Let's go to our Commissioner of Finance. Director of Finance, not Commissioner.
I don't have any updates. Thank you.
Do we have that resolution? Or are we getting to more resolutions later? Sorry.
Any questions? Now we go to our Human Resources Commissioner.
Thank you, Mike. We have a couple of reports for you. Larry will start with an update on the numbers that we've been providing on a monthly basis.
All right, good morning, everyone. Some quick numbers on March for Human Resources. We have 780 county staff, 300 election workers, and 42 JTPAs, which is Job Training and Partnership Act, all on our payroll system. For recruitment, we're...
Excuse me, Larry, is that 300 in the 780?
Plus.
So now we're up to 1,080?
We are.
Plus 42.
Plus 42 with JTPAs.
In the previous reports, we've given you a total number. I wanted to break it down this time to show you the number of Board of Election employees that we're onboarding consistently. That number will drop, but this is where we are now.
Okay.
Big number. All right.
It's like guppies. I mean, sorry.
Recruitment for March, of course, the county attorney, the budget director, and we've been recruiting pretty hard for an assistant district attorney, and we had 94 jobs posted in March between the municipalities and county departments. Outreach was 2 job fairs, did 2 mock interviews with TST BOCES, and of course the normal community outreach that's done. Applications reviewed was 522. 13 civil service tests were posted and 92 applications for civil service exams. There were 18 exams given in March and 44 people in attendance for those exams. The help submissions. So we have put in for 14 positions through the help program. That's hiring for emergency limited placement. And the municipalities have given us 5 that they want to submit. We've onboarded 13.
What is that?
The help program?
Yeah. Pardon.
The help program is New York State's trying to fix the civil service lull in applications. So folks can get hired on through this help program without testing. And then once they've been in that position for a year, they become permanent.
Okay, I see it in the resolution. I was going to ask it there, but okay.
Onboarding, again, 13 people onboarded. We did 47 ban the box forms for onboarding. That included the election workers. Off-boarded were 9 people with 1 exit interview agreed to do. 5 people signed up for health, 3 for dental, 1 for vision, and 1 through our FSA program out of those folks onboarded. And 11 people elected to onboard for our retirement. Why that number is low is because we had 2 temp people that don't qualify for that. Benefit leaves, we had 28 benefit leaves for disability. 15 took advantage of the cancer screening, 6 bereavement, 3 people on jury, and 8 for COVID. And those are our totals for March.
Impressive. Thank you.
What else are you folks doing?
Eating bonbons and candy.
Any questions regarding the numbers before I go into the other announcements?
Rich?
You said 780 employees. In the back of my head, I'd been at 740 post-pandemic. Have we added that many headcount?
We have.
Wow. And what's our vacancy rate?
I'm not sure what it is right now.
Okay, and then you indicated 9 were off-boarded and 1 did an exit interview. Is that normal? Do you really get resistance to doing exit interviews?
Very much, yeah.
So
that's average. Yeah.
That isn't alarming, that's just the way people don't want to talk about it. Do you think there's anything we could be doing better to get more exit interviews? Because I mean, that's a real great source of information we're missing.
It is, and what I've been trying to do is, that system is pretty automated, so we made it so it was just less back and forth. But there's definitely some folks that leave, especially like long-term employees and things, that I reach out personally to and outside of the automated system and ask them for an exit interview too. It does not go to retirees.
So if any of them retire, they don't get that automated message for an exit interview with HR.
Should we be reaching out and trying to get exit interviews from retirees?
Those are the ones I reach out to.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
And some departments do some form of exit interview when it's a planned retirement or things, but we don't have that. It's a centralized process. Do you want to?
No, I don't need more time on it now.
Okay.
Thanks.
I would also just remind us that we just hired several people with respect to the rapid medical response.
Yeah.
Our next announcement is the 25-year dinner club invite. The invitations have been extended. The dinner is scheduled for May 30th at the Lake Watch Inn at 5 o'clock. There will be 12 people inducted into the 25-year club, and as always, legislators are invited to attend. We ask that you please RSVP by calling the office no later than May 10th. Okay, it's a great time for all. Okay, I think those are just the general announcements. I have 2 resolutions under there. If you want me to go into that now, or?
Well, let's just see if there are questions.
Okay.
I had one. When do we start the administrator search? I know that's going to be asked.
I know. We're going to start pre-interview or pre-posting task in the office. We have to make sure we go back over the job description again, make sure the salary is fixed at the approved rate for the legislators, and trying to do some pre-recruitment source identification. I really don't want to start the search until at least July. The reason being, we are in the peak seasons for our exams. We are given exams every Saturday, and that's anywhere from 4, sometimes 6 exams on those Saturdays. We are also completing the HELP program documentation, getting public hearings and documentation into the state. This is a very busy time for HR. We slow down a little bit. There are no exams every Saturday after June. So I would like to start it in July. But again, we have to talk about that, and it's based upon legislature's direction.
I was just wondering, if we wait till July, will we possibly suppress the number of people that might be applying because of vacations and all of that?
It's up for discussion. And again, I will follow the lead of the legislature.
Donna?
I would really like to get started sooner than later, because we know that we've historically had to do a few searches. We've had to renew searches, and we really don't want to be in a rush to hire a candidate. We want to hire the perfect candidate, and more importantly, we want that candidate to be able to spend some quality time with Lisa. The good thing is that towards the end of the year, once our budget's passed, we do have some downtime. So ideally, that person would be able to spend November, December learning the ropes with Lisa. I guess my question is, could we start engaging the services of recruiting firms and getting proposals now so that we can kind of get the ball rolling a little bit?
That's if the legislature's decision is to do it with a recruiting firm.
Oh, I think we want to do that.
And I will bring that up at the full legislature as well. But I agree with Shauna and Deborah. Lee?
Is anybody anticipating any changes to the job description or expectations of the position? There should be a fairly contemporary framework to work within.
Leaps tall buildings in a single bound, yeah.
Just tell them they don't have to handle pandemic this year.
Who knows? Don't say that.
Rich?
Lisa, have you looked at the job description, and do you think it accurately reflects what you're doing?
I haven't taken a look at it in a while, but I certainly will.
Yeah, I think that you could probably get with Ruby and hammer that out, because you know the job better than anybody.
Sure.
Okay.
Okay. So I will wait for directions from the full ledge, and then we'll proceed accordingly.
Let's go to resolutions then. We have a resolution from Contingent Fund, HR Professional Services, that's ID 350. You want to talk about that, Ruby?
Yes.
To move that, Mike? You want me to move that?
Oh, please.
Okay.
Thank you. And seconded by Rich, sorry.
All right. We're requesting the amount of $48,000 to engage professional temporary services for the HR department. You've heard some of the numbers from Larry, but I just wanted to say this year, we have an opportunity to take advantage of civil service initiatives that we've been crying about for a couple of years. We have an opportunity to have people who have been working in positions for some 2-3 years to actually become permanent without having been tested. Larry mentioned we had 14 the first round. One was withdrawn because an exam actually we got the scores. And one of the requirements is that we can advance titles if there have been no exams ordered or there are no lists. So we got a list on that one. So it was 15 for the first round. The second round, we've identified 29 titles so far. My goal is to get as many titles in this program approved for the provisional employees by the deadline of December the 31st, so that they won't have to take an exam. So we're going through every title that's been approved that has a person in it on a provisional basis. And again, that deadline is December the 31st. We were a part of the pilot program for the corrections T&E exam, which is the training and experience exam. We got 13 appointed correction officers from that program itself. Those were the pilot programs. We have now been approved for continuous recruitment, which means we run exams all year as long as there's a need. All of that, in addition to everything else we're doing, requires staff. And at this point, the capacity of the staff is at max. So the most effective solution at this time is to engage in the professional temporary services to help us to get through those exams every Saturday, the day-to-day calls and the day-to-day interactions we have to do. So I am requesting an amount for temporary services for this year to get us through and take advantage of all of the initiatives that we've been requesting.
Shauna, then Deborah, then Rich.
Yeah, I know that this office, for one, it does a lot, and you guys work on with a very skeletal crew. I guess I'm just wondering, is there a way, if you end up going through, are you going to go through Express or HR1 or?
We're looking at HR-specific organizations. Okay. HR Works, a couple of organizations from Syracuse. I put the amount of $48,000. We don't have a set fee yet, but I use $48,000 as that's the new higher rate for an HR assistant, okay, which is a little bit above a project assistant or info aide.
I mean, I guess I'm just wondering, because through many of those temp agencies, you're essentially paying double the person's salary. Is that?
No, we're paying a fee to the temp agency. Okay. We are not paying the fringe that's added to it. So this is the most cost-effective way at this time.
Okay. So if the person came on board and they were doing a great job, would there be the potential to hire them full-time?
If we, through our budget process, if we were approved for an additional full-time.
Okay. I guess where I'm going is that knowing that you guys are so skeletal, my thought has been for a while, it would make sense to add someone permanently to your department. And maybe this is the way that we could do it.
Right. And we're hoping to do that. If you remember a couple of years ago, departments were asked to reduce the budget by a certain percentage. I eliminated one position because of that. And we've managed, but like I said, we're at our capacity at this point.
Okay, thank you.
Deborah.
Yeah, I was going to ask how Ruby arrived at the $48,000 figure, but she answered that question. Thank you.
Rich?
Yeah, you answered that piece of the question. Just big picture, it seems like civil service is breaking.
No, civil service is progressing.
Okay. I mean, it seems like we have this whole overlay that's getting built on top of the old civil service system.
Which is,
You're optimistic rather than
I am.
Despairing. Okay.
I really am. You have no idea, or maybe you do, the amount of stress and pressure this relieves from employees who have been working in a job for a year or two. Tests have not been available. And then the stress of having to come in the top 3 in order to keep a job you've been doing for 2-3 years. And the stress on the staff, keeping people engaged in order to wait that long. So
these seem like piecemeal efforts on a pilot basis. Is it coming, do you think this is what's going to be?
I'm hopeful. Remember, the HELP program started in 2023. It was supposed to end December 2023. It has been extended to 2024, and we're hoping that it will go on and be extended. We have some proposals that more exams will be training and experience based upon the training and the experience that the candidate has, rather than a standardized civil service exam. So I think civil service is finally listening to the municipalities that it serves. The exam has not helped in our recruitment and retention issues, and it's just come up to the surface now. And they are giving us, yes, it's piecemeal, but we're taking advantage of every piece that we can to whittle away any of the barriers that we have. We cannot compete with private sector as far as compensation is concerned. So we have to eliminate some of the barriers to public sector work. And this is one way we do it.
You know, the whole history of the civil service was professionalizing and making sure you weren't just hiring your buddies.
Correct.
I assume those protections are ongoing and.
Yes. It's called meeting minimum quals and making sure our job descriptions are written with the functions of the position in mind rather than persons. If you would notice, I said we have 29 titles. So we're doing it by titles. It's going to benefit the person in that position at this point.
I will support.
Anything else? Are we ready to vote on this one? All those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you.
We've got Resolution B. For a time check, I just wanted to point out it's 10:30. Adopting basic employer-paid life insurance and accidental death and dismemberment for all eligible employees.
Okay.
ID 12351. Deborah?
Moves it.
Second. Rich? Discussion? Deborah?
Is this the program you all described at last month's meeting?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
During last month's meeting, I mentioned that I would be coming back to the committee to discuss not only the voluntary or supplemental benefits that are employee paid, but the employer paid life insurance and AD&D, accidental death and dismemberment insurance. At the request of several legislators, we're moving this early. We want to include this in the same rollout that we will be rolling out the voluntary benefits information, and that's July of this year. The cost is associated, it's in the resolution, using one of the same companies that we're using for the voluntary benefits. So it is seamless in its administration and implementation. Every employee who is benefits eligible, that means if you're at least 50% or 50% of, I should say part-time, if you're 50% of your full-time equivalency, if it's a 40-hour job and the person is working at least 20 hours, they're eligible. Temporary employees who work less than 120 days are not eligible. So you have to be benefits eligible in order to receive this. But at that point, anyone who's on the payroll as an employee, benefits eligible employee will receive life insurance in the amount of $50,000.
But this doesn't include the election workers?
No.
Okay.
Donna?
Yeah, I was wondering, I know that many of us receive the premiums for the different amounts of coverage. If the county ends up picking up a certain level, is there going to be a deduction of the next levels if someone wants to upgrade?
If they want to upgrade, it would be totally the employee paid. This is only what the county is providing.
Okay.
It's a basic. And they can take additional coverage from a different company, however they want to do it.
Okay.
But this is simply only that $50,000 base coverage that the county would assume responsibility for.
So I guess my question is, so if the county pays $5 for $50,000 coverage, and a person wants $100,000 for $10, is the county still going to pay the $5, or would the employee have to pay the full $10?
The county is still responsible for that $5.
Okay, great. And then the other question I have is the dollar amounts are noted for the year. Would we be prorating that on this resolution to take it only, since we're starting in July, we'd only take 5 months?
Is
6
that
months?
how I don't know how we did that, Norma. I would have to get back to you on that because I'm not sure. They quoted us, if it's to be effective July 1, 2024, I'm not sure what the total amount, I can get back with you on that.
I'm just wondering if it should be half, I mean, if 71,640 is for the year and we're only going to be paying for 6 months, if it should be half of that.
So that number was a number I believe Sarah gave us, so I'm not sure if that number was the half year or the year.
It was
We'll have to-
annual.
We'll have to,
Annual,
okay.
yeah.
So that year is going to run from July 1 to June 30th.
July 1 to, I think it was just till December.
All right, then
And
it's
then-
not annual, it's semi-annual.
Well, the 71 is annual. If we were doing it for half a year, I assume we would just do that half amount.
Well, yeah, so we need to figure out what we're paying for with $71,000.
Well, the contractor may do people from date of hire or date of, that we elect, they may start their year running from then. So I don't know,
yeah.
I don't know whether they'll prorate that or not
And the other piece,
with a group policy.
and the other piece of this is going to be going forward. And not that I object to this at all, I think it's a great idea. Going forward, that amount's got to fluctuate, doesn't it, as our number of employees, eligible employees change?
Norma?
Yeah, and I realize that in this resolution, it has omitted the target. So this is an ongoing cost. So we do need to have this approved as a target increase.
I was just
And
gonna
it will
say
be
that.
applied to the fringe calculation. So if we could edit this somehow to add in that this is a target increase on the fringe.
Yeah, I think it's real important that we realize that this is a $71,000 hit that's going to continue. So that's something that our budget person, Lisa, is going to have to automatically put in before we start. Rich?
I think Lee was ahead of me.
No, Lee,
That
sorry.
was going to be my question. Are we going to be seeing an over-target request? But it appears that that'll be amended here and factored into your budget moving forward.
Rich?
It does sound like the figure for '24 is going to be roughly half of this number, but I see it's calculated on 753 eligible lives, but we're up to 780, so does that mean that number is going to
It'll fluctuate.
sponge around a bit?
It'll fluctuate.
Well, the 780 isn't necessarily, not all 780 of them
Are
are
filled.
necessarily qualified.
Right, they're not all
Oh, okay.
benefits eligible.
So 753 you think might be the accurate number now, but July 1st it might be different.
But it
And
may
I
be,
think there's some fluctuation in the number of employees that they give us the rate. You have this rate if you have this number to that number. And then if it goes maybe above 800, you'll have a different rate. So it may fluctuate.
Well, we really nailed this custard pie to the wall, didn't we?
it would seem to me that the insurance company would want a year's commitment to lock in
Yeah.
a price. So like carving it up month by month.
We could do a year.
No, I have
Yeah.
no problem with it. I just want to know exactly how much it's going
Yeah.
to cost and exactly what we're buying.
Right. We've sent a message over and see if we can get those figures. If this is for July through June of next year, or if this is for July through December.
So since we're not entirely sure, I mean, it's possible for us to approve this resolution subject to getting more exact information before it actually comes before the full legislature. And I think we need to understand that's what we're doing.
I wish someone would talk to me a little bit about why we should be doing this. Yes, it's a nice thing to do, I understand that, but should this be something that is negotiated in our union contracts? I would like someone to talk about to me why I should vote for this. Deborah?
As a lifelong government employee, I have lived with earning less, working just as hard, in hearing consistently that the reason that I'm doing that is because I'm offered job security and fringe benefits and retirement benefits that far exceed what might be available to me in the private sector. I think that has become less and less true over time. And I think that's why you're seeing movement in Albany to augment the benefits available in the lower tiers of the retirement system, for example. But I think that what we are seeing, particularly post-pandemic, is how much the job market has changed, how difficult it is for us to recruit good employees. And I think this is just another thing that we can do to make ourselves a more competitive employer. And I think that if we expect to be able to continue to staff our offices to deliver the services that we've committed to deliver to our residents and the services that the state mandates us to deliver, we need to do whatever we can to make ourselves a more attractive employer, and that is why I would support this.
Thank you. Shauna?
I mean, I think we're constantly talking about how to keep our employees and how to bring in new employees. And employees in our area we're all going for the same pool of local people, sometimes not local people, and we're trying to make these jobs as appealing as we can. And some of the younger people, you know, they're not thinking about life insurance and disability insurance and all of this. But the reality is that bad things happen to really good people. And whenever we're able to offer people jobs, we're not necessarily competitive in the salary. If this is something that we can do at the rate of $71,000, less than $100 a person, and add value to their life, especially in their, you know, if they were to pass away or have, you know, a long-term disability, if that's going to make their life easier for under $100, I think that's a very good investment. And it shows that we care about our employees. And for $100 per year, that we need to do that. It's the right thing to do.
And it is for the full year. That's $71,000 for the full year. So it's going from July to June.
Thank you. Rich?
I'm going to support the resolution, but as soon as you said that, Shauna, I started doing math in my head, and I was wondering, is this something where a self-insured retention would make sense? You know, that if the benefit is $50K and we're going to spend 71, what's the actuarial likelihood that we're having somebody die while they're employed?
And do we want to be the administrators of that?
Well, I mean, we self-insure for other things. It would be a reserve fund. Bigger question, let's move on. But
Insurance companies betting that they won't die.
well, and we would do the same.
The
Yeah.
There's no question that doing things like this, I just hope that I hope the word about doing things like this and some of the other things we've done with bonuses and that is understood in negotiations. Yeah, they're going to always try to get the best for their group, and they should. But we're talking about negotiations and the way we work together. I hope these efforts by the legislature are taken into consideration. Ready to vote? Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous.
Thank you. That's all from Human Resources. Thank you.
Ruby, I wanted to mention, I believe yesterday there was a job fair at TC3, and I think we were one of the 30 participants up there. It was open to the public. It was for students. It was heavily advertised on the radio. And just wondered, did we have any feedback from that?
Larry was there.
I was there. It was another one of the oven fresh jobs put on by Cuga Radio Group at TC3. It was very well attended. There wasn't any more than maybe 2 minutes in the first part of that I wasn't talking to folks and had people lined up at my table.
Well, that's good news.
It was very good.
Were there community members as well as students?
Both, yes.
Norma, I think it's.
Hi, Norma.
That the last resolution you passed, I wanted to make sure that we captured the fact that this was a target increase.
I thought we did.
I just want to make sure
It wasn't formally moved or
amended. I just wanted to make sure that it was amended as a
Can we
target
get
increase.
Jordan, Katrina, make sure that's in there.
I think I seconded, that would be friendly.
Yeah.
It's friendly.
All right.
Okay, thank you.
Good point. Thank you, Norma. All right, let's see if we can move on. We've only got a few minutes left. We've got a resolution here authorizing a partnership agreement with Point Broadband to expand high-speed internet service to unserved addresses of Tompkins County in the towns of Groton, Lansing, Ithaca, Danby, Newfield, Enfield, and Ulysses. 12319. Nick, do you want to come up?
I'll move that.
I'll
I have it
second it.
moved by Shauna, seconded by Deborah.
Hi.
Go ahead.
Just, yeah, kind of a little background on this. For those of you who have not been following broadband, it's been talked about a lot in the Housing and Economic Development Committee, but this is, I believe, the first time it's come to this group specifically. So we've been working on this topic for a while. We've been working closely with our consultant partners at ECC Technologies and the state office. It's called the Connect All office. That's the state agency that's going to be deploying the federal funding, approximately $664 million from the bipartisan infrastructure law intended to expand broadband to unserved areas. Back in the fall, the county issued a request for proposals to figure out which of the internet service providers in our area would be willing to expand their networks to cover those approximately 1,200 addresses we know to be unserved within the county. We got back 7 proposals. We had a really engaged and active review team looking at those proposals and interviewing the firms that responded and coming up with a solution that appeared to be the best for the county. So this is the result of that RFP selection. We have a finalist selected bidder here for Point Broadband. You'll notice, of course, there are only 7 of the 9 towns listed in this resolution. The other 2 towns are pursuing a program called the Municipal Infrastructure Program through the Connect All office. This will allow the towns of Dryden and Caroline, thank you, to expand a municipal network within those 2 areas. As such, the next step forward for us to make this happen is to do preliminary engineering on this, and hence the reason for requesting funds from the contingent fund today. We're looking for up to $100,000. The cost may be under that depending on the actual build costs from the provider. Several of you may also have heard recently there's been a new state program that's been recently announced from the Connect All office about county partnerships, and we are very interested in that, looking into that very closely. They are requesting responses to that program by May 10th. So all things go smoothly, we may have some funding lined up earlier than expected to address broadband from the state. With that, I'll pause here and open it up for questions, since I'm sure there may be a few.
Deborah.
So this $100,000 is just a preliminary engineering study.
That's correct.
And you anticipate that between the county and the bidder, we'll be getting a fair amount of the funding for an actual installation from state sources?
That's correct, yeah. So for the actual infrastructure component, the partnership agreement would indicates that the bidder, Point Broadband, would put forward a minimum of 25% of the cost, with the expectation that the balance would be coming from state or federal sources through the Connect All office or whatever other sources may present themselves. But yeah, that's the general expectation right now.
And they would put that 25% in, anticipating that they would be getting revenue from the people who are served.
Absolutely right. The firm here, Point Broadband, would get fees from the folks who are subscribing to their service in that coverage area. Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Rich, then Shauna.
Yeah, I thought we put some money in the fall to do the preliminary study. So this is more study money?
So yeah, the study money previously was for ECC technologies. That was for the consulting that's been helping us navigate this issue since 2022.
Okay. And the resolution really doesn't lay out a pathway. I'm worried. We've seen some very large numbers, like $6 million. And we're making a statement here, whereas the county legislature wishes to ensure that all county residents are able to access reliable, high-speed broadband service. That's new. And that's undertaking something similar to rapid medical response that we've never assumed responsibility for. I guess I'm a little nervous making that statement where we've never really had a full debate. Maybe it's been done at the committee level, but it has not really been discussed at any length in the legislature. And I'm certainly willing to have a conversation about assistance for people who are of limited means and are living outside of the urban area because they can't afford to live in the urban area and need broadband access. But there's a lot of people who are living out in the country because that's where they want to be. They want to be at the end of a very secluded road where getting broadband is incredibly inefficient, and they knew that when they bought it. I'm not very interested in subsidizing them getting broadband, and I'd like to make sure that we're differentiating and that, if possible, we're not paying. But as an ongoing responsibility, I don't know if we want the county to be assuming we're now going to be giving people broadband or getting access to it. So I'm skeptical about this resolution.
Shauna?
So I was actually on the working group, and it was good for me to see how we asked a lot of questions. We vetted many of these organizations, and the whole idea behind this was that we can invest $100,000. This agency was going to be investing some of their funds as well in order to position us to get a good portion of funding from the federal government and I believe the state government as well, with the idea that we're going to have hopefully a very small chunk of that. And one thing that was enlightening for me was just in the conversations was that it might not be financially, I don't know, smart for us to pay for that house way up on the hill. Like there might be other options like satellite that might be a better fit. And there might be some houses that we're not going to be able to reach just because it does not make financial sense, because it could be what, $25,000, $50,000 a line, which it's not feasible. So I mean, we could certainly take out that line that, if it would make people feel comfortable.
I have a suggestion about that. In line 42, Rich, what if we change the word ensure to encourage?
Yeah, I think that does change the meaning. And again, this very small portion, what is it? Suddenly we're, and do we have some sort of equal protection argument that's going to come down the pike saying, well, you paid for them, you've got to bring it to my house now. This is a utility service that you have undertaken. But encourage would be a better word than ensure, I think.
We're going to have to word this a little bit differently. I would say wishes to facilitate
Access to
all residents who wish to take advantage of reliable, high-speed broadband service.
Okay, who moved that resolution?
I moved.
And I think I was involved. I can't remember.
Is that okay with you, that language?
Taylor?
Yeah, if we could get it read back.
Are you able to read that back to us, Jordan? We need it repeated.
I have the line 42 one.
No, Deborah, you want to repeat what you were suggesting, please?
wants to, the county legislature wishes to facilitate access to reliable, high-speed broadband service for all county residents who desire it.
So is that friendly, or is that friendly? Do you-
You know what, I think you're going to have to vote. I'm going to hang back on this one. I appreciate the effort, but I'm going to vote no on this.
Okay, well, we'll still, I mean, I
Yeah,
still
you
take
can leave the
your-
language as it
I
is.
still take your point. I don't want to create an expectation that the county is now going to be responsible for making sure that everybody everywhere in Tompkins County can access high-speed internet. You know, we've seen how the rapid medical response thing has played out. You know,
I think it's more than that. I think it's whether we're going to pay for it. We haven't made that decision yet.
I'm happy for everybody to get broadband. I just don't want to pay for it.
Well, no, and I take your point. I frequently have the same reaction when people who choose to live far away from services and facilities complain that they don't have access to the same services and facilities that people in cities have, people who live in cities that the complainers don't want to live in. And I don't think that government should assume the cost of providing those services. So I do take your point. I mean, I'm happy to just eliminate the whole line 42 and 43 thing entirely, but then you've raised the specter of an equal protection argument, and I don't know how we avoid that in any program that we decide we want to provide to as many citizens as we can reasonably reach.
Yeah, I don't know if there was discussion of means testing. And again, I don't want to go back to the committee because you guys have done all the work. I don't know. But
I think it was the group conclusion. I mean, it was Dan, myself, and Greg. And there was a pretty fair assumption that the county would have to pay money, and it could be $1 million to $5 million. And the rest could and would be federal and state grants. That's not to say that, you know, we're one of 14.
Right, and I think the expectation from the state is that many municipalities and internet service providers will be putting funds into the program as matching funds to leverage that $660 million from the federal government. That will not be enough to reach all of the unserved addresses in the state, and there will be additional funds going in from not just from Tompkins County, but around the state.
I mean, a potential $5 million investment is not something that we should be inviting in a resolution to spend $100,000. But
I agree.
I mean, I think that kind of potential commitment should be fully discussed by the entire legislature, but I think we can pretty much avoid that by just axing line 42 and 43.
At 1 million.
I want to get Katie to, excuse me.
Yeah, I think we could either just delete it all, or you could modify it by saying that the proposal is to serve currently unserved addresses. Be another way to just limit what this commitment is.
Drop it.
I'm happy to drop it completely.
But Sema doesn't, I think we
we'll
should
get more
just drop
buy-in
it.
for this resolution if we're able to do that.
So would eliminating lines 42 and 43
I want to get Lee.
be friendly?
It's just the 1 million to 5 million to cover 1,216 locations. Am I hearing that correctly?
The initial estimates we got from ECC were $7 million for a total project cost and 1,200 locations across the county. That was back in the late summer, so.
What's that work out to? $5,000 a residence or 50,000? 5,000.
It's under 50,000, yeah.
5 times 12.
All right, so now I think we're hearing a proposal to delete lines 42 and 43 as an amendment. Is that friendly?
Yes.
All right. Further discussion. Rich?
With that change, I'll vote in support, but you haven't heard the last of me yet.
I'll be back.
We're coming back to this.
Are we ready to vote?
I think Katie wanted to be heard, maybe.
Sorry,
No, yeah, you got me.
Okay.
Before. Thanks.
All those in favor? Opposed? We're going to go about 5 minutes over. We got a couple more resolutions here. Budget adjustment, appropriation from contingent fund, terminal pay, Department of Probation and Community Justice. Someone want to move that? Rich, is there a second? Thank you, Katie. Thank you, Nick. Seconded by Shauna. Discussion? Those in favor? Any opposed? And then we have a resolution authorization to submit a 2025 budget over target request from the Clerk of the Legislature, historic data migration. It's ID 12354. Someone want to move that one? Rich? Shauna? I guess we got to turn to Katrina.
Okay, we're looking to move to a new meeting management software system, and the current data in our current software system, we would like to be migrated to that new software. The problem is the new software, or the current software, Minute Track, has an expiration date of December 8th, 2024, and I would like assurance, I'm missing a lot. I'd like assurance that we have the current data backed up before we move forward to Legistar. In addition to this resolution, I spoke with Norma after the GO committee meeting, and we think it might be more appropriate to take this funding from contingent fund, and then she will help me make sure it gets moved forward to 2025 at the end of the year if we haven't utilized it at that point. So there could be an amendment to this.
Rich?
We had a fairly extensive discussion on this issue in government operations, and I think this really makes sense to do this because we want to make sure we do it right. It's a reasonable expense for what we get in exchange, in my view.
Questions?
So the resolution is telling us that you're going to put it into the 2025 proposal for an over-target request, or do you think you're going to come back and look for contingency fund yet this year and move ahead with it?
If we could, I would rather move forward with contingency fund request. Norma and I did speak, but it was after that last meeting. And
Add to it if you want.
I don't know if Norma's gonna.
I can add to that if you want. So if they apply for the contingency, if you approve contingency fund use for 2024, what will happen is we'll enter into that agreement. They'll be able to procure that, right? So there'll be a purchase order that can then roll forward to 2025. So it wouldn't be I'm asking this year and then I'm coming back and asking again next year. It would be a one-time expense that would then flow between the two. Because Katrina's not entirely sure when that job will start, it would be better to have the funding available so that she can get it moving sooner rather than later.
Deb?
Well, that makes perfect sense, but we would need a substantially different resolution.
Agreed.
That would
Yeah.
state that it's, revenues coming out of contingent fund.
Agreed.
with all those fancy codes that Lori's so fond of. So I don't know that we want to make that change on the fly. Is there some way maybe we could have this resolution come forward as a contingent fund resolution, and we could have a quick special BCP meeting before the next legislator meet? That's a pretty substantial change to the resolution. That's my only concern.
I did draft a resolution, but I didn't talk to Lori before I drafted it to see if I had her. It was at the last minute. So I do have one prepared if you would like me to distribute it. But I know we're out of time.
Time-wise, if we do that?
Yeah, I'm
Yes.
fine with that. And then Lori can review it on the fly. Sorry, girl.
Wonder.
Oh, look, she's prepared.
I know. But I didn't talk to Lori, so I
No,
didn't want to.
thank you.
And you still got GO, right?
The GO already approved the
the expense.
Well, we could at least offer this one as a substitute at the legislature meeting, and at least we'd know what the heck it was we passed.
Was the resolution moved so far? If not, then I guess we would move to substitute this one.
It was moved and seconded.
I would withdraw. I think I moved it.
But as we did with the other resolution earlier, do we need to talk about this becoming a target increase?
This would not be a target increase.
Would not be a target increase.
Yeah, we only need to migrate that data once.
Yep.
Okay. So someone want to move to substitute Lee, you said? Is there a second? Second by Rich. And any discussion on substitution? Those in favor of the substitution? Now we'll vote on the substitute resolution. Those in favor? Any opposed? That's unanimous. Okay? I forgot to ask Lori, you were okay? All right. And our budget officer is okay?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Anything else before we adjourn?
I've been keeping a tally, Mike. It looks like we've recommended to use $289,000 out of contingency through our actions today.
I think you're right.
Yeah, and that's the way it always goes, Lee.
Will we have a report on that mid-year about contingency?
You know, I think that your colleague, Mr. Mezzi, has asked for a more or less quarterly update on how much contingent fund we've spent. So at any point in time, that probably wouldn't hurt.
Maybe if we keep it vague, there'll be less urge to spend it.
Well, no, I mean, I think knowing the status of our contingent fund spending is important when people start
No, I think we need that.
acting like we have unlimited funds.
Good point. All right. Thank you all for being here today, and we'll adjourn.
Thank you, Mike.
Thank you.